Good evening, everybody. Welcome. If you are here, that means you probably signed up for the webinar on scholarships. So this webinar is going to be particularly helpful for 12th graders and their families to learn about what is a scholarship, what are some resources where you can go to apply, what types of scholarships are out there, and how do scholarships tie into financial aid. However, if you are a younger student or a support staff member, a parent, a guardian, someone who works with younger students, 11th grade or younger, hopefully this will apply to you too. I do have, although you'll be able to view the chat, you won't be able to type into it, but there is a Q&A. So look at the bottom of your Zoom bar. There should be a Q&A button. And if you tap on it or click on it, you should be able to type a question into the Q&A. So feel free at any time to type a question in. And I have a staff member, Francisco, here, and he's going to be helping monitor that Q&A. He will try to type back answers if he is able to, and if he is not able to, he'll unmute himself and ask me to pause and answer the question live as I do the slides. So feel free to ask anything in the Q&A. I know the most common question is, can we have access to this webinar? And can we have access to the slide deck? And the answer to both is yes. And starting tomorrow on the CalSOAP website, which is calsoapsandiego.org, we have a webinar and blog tab. And in that tab, we always put up any kind of webinars that we record, any presentations we record, and we will also have a link to a PDF of the slide deck. So the slides that I'm sharing, you will be able to see starting tomorrow on the CalSOAP San Diego website. So I don't see anything in the Q&A so far, but again, if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in there. I also renamed myself to include my email address, which is KK, that's 2 Ks, Whitaker@ucsd.edu. And if there are questions that you want to ask me individually after the fact, you are welcome to do so and get in touch with me via email. So I will go ahead and get started with the information, but I want to tailor it to you and I want to answer your questions. So don't hesitate to put anything in the Q&A if you have a question, if you want clarification from me, if there's anything that I can help you with, please don't hesitate to put that in the Q&A. So give me one moment while I open the presentation and then I will start sharing screen. All right, so we are CalSOAP. We are San Diego. There are CalSOAPs throughout California, but we are San Diego and Imperial counties. And what we want to focus on tonight is paying for college. And unfortunately, college is not completely free. We do consider it an investment with lifetime benefits. And we are hoping to find ways so that instead of you having to pay with your own loans or savings or whatever, we hope that you can get access to as much financial aid and scholarship money as possible. So we're going to try to give you information on resources to be able to access that. One of the best reasons to get scholarships is if the federal, state, and college money that they offer you isn't enough to pay the entire cost of attendance for your college education. Scholarship money is what can help reduce any borrowing that you would choose to do. In other words, if you absolutely do not want to borrow and don't want to have any student debt, one way to help do that is to secure scholarships, because scholarships are free money that don't need to be paid back. And scholarships can help you finance your education in any of the systems of higher education, whether it's a community college, a CSU, a UC, a private or independent university, a vocational or technical school, even an out-of-state college or university. Scholarships should be accepted at and offered by all these different institutions. So there's one basic thing, and I know that this technically is not a scholarship, but it gives you access to many scholarships. Many scholarship applications ask you to fill this out. And also many college financial aid offices ask you to fill this out. Even if they're saying, It doesn't matter what your income is. This is for the promise, and it's regardless of family income. They still want you to fill it out. They still want to have that expected family contribution amount, and it still kind of opens you up for many other scholarships. So that is the FAFSA. Either the FAFSA or the California Dream Act. They're essentially a very similar form. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And if you have a social security, if the student has a social security number, that's the one that they will fill out. The California Dream Act basically asks all the same questions, but you're not, if you don't have a social security number, for example, if you're AB 540 status, you're not eligible for federal aid, like federal grants, but you are eligible for California grants if you go to school anywhere in the state of California, whether it's public or private, 2-year or 4-year. So it's always due by March 2nd of 12th grade year. So if you're younger, if you're 11th grade or 10th grader, no, you cannot fill out the FAFSA or Dream Act yet, but you will be able to starting your senior year. So if you're trying to figure out which application do I do, it doesn't depend on the parent status, it depends on the student status. So if the student is either a US citizen, a permanent resident, or has a T visa, they're going to fill out the FAFSA. That will be their form that they'll fill out in 12th grade. If a student is undocumented, if they're DACA status, if they have a U visa or temporary protected status, they're going to fill out the California Dream application. And again, they're essentially the same. They ask the same questions, but FAFSA will show you both federal and state aid you're eligible for. California Dream Act is only for colleges in California. So no one will do both. Every student would choose to do one or the other their senior year. So whichever one applies to you. So where does scholarship money come from? One source is the federal government. One source is the state government, like the Department of Education. Colleges and universities themselves give out scholarships. And then there are tons of companies, organizations, clubs, businesses, and rich private donors who like to give scholarship money away. So there's a lot of different sources for scholarships. Basically, the scholarship is an award for the purpose of furthering someone's education. It can be based on a range of criteria, and that can reflect the values of the donor or founder. And this is important. A scholarship is not a loan. It does not need to be repaid. It is gift aid. It is a gift. Once you get it, once you use it and apply it toward education, you don't have to pay it back. That's part of the deal with a scholarship, is it's free money that can be applied toward college expenses. Any questions so far? Okay. So how do scholarships work? If you win, say you win $1,000 scholarship, do they give you a check for $1,000? Does the check go to a parent or a student? What happens? Well, I would say more than 90% of scholarships, they are paid directly to the student's college, that college's financial aid office. The financial aid office will then first, if you owe them anything, in other words, if you owe for tuition, if you owe for books or dorms or whatever, they will apply that money there, right? And then if there's any left over, like you don't have any, if you want to say outstanding bills to the college, they literally then disperse it back to you. They direct deposit back and they pay it back to the student, and it comes to you in the form of, well, not cash, but in your account. Some scholarships are renewable annually, which is a great thing because it means every year you can apply to renew and keep getting that same scholarship funding, but some are one-time only. There's lots of scholarships, especially for high school seniors, that are just a one-time only scholarship, and they're meant to try to help you get through your freshman year. And after that, you might have to seek some other funding, but that would be a one-time scholarship. No matter what, whether it's one-time or whether it's renewable, scholarships are great because you don't have to pay them back, but just be aware that some are a one-time deal and some are renewable each year. A lot of people say, well, what if I'm offered multiple different scholarships? How do I decide? And the answer is great. You don't have to decide. If you are offered 1, 2, 5, 10 different scholarships, you can usually accept them all, or at least most of them, all the way up to the cost of attendance. Now, you might not be able to exceed that amount of the cost of attendance. And by the way, cost of attendance is not just applying to tuition, that's part of it, but cost of attendance also includes your rent or what you're paying for where you live, your food or food plan. That includes transportation and medical care and books and parking passes and a lot of other things. So the cost of attendance, we realize the cost of college is not just the tuition part. There's all the other costs that go along with it, but all of that is considered part of the cost of attendance, and most scholarships will cover any of those things. So there might be a few scholarships that say this is a tuition only scholarship. It can only be applied to tuition, but there are a lot of scholarships that just apply to anything that is your cost of attendance, even if that's rent, even if that's food, even if that's a computer. So there's a lot of different factors that can make a student eligible for scholarships. And I know that this isn't even an exhaustive list, but this is a lot because every person or organization that gives a scholarship is allowed to choose their criteria. So for them, it might be gender and orientation. It might be a scholarship for men, for women, for non-binary people. It might be based on your financial need. What's your expected family contribution or student aid index? It might be based on citizenship. It might be specific to a certain high school, city, or county. Like, for example, in San Diego, we have the San Diego Foundation that gives scholarships specifically to students who are living or going to school within San Diego County. It might be based on your background, your cultural heritage, your race or ethnicity. If you're a veteran, and if you yourself are either in the military or if you're a descendant or dependent of someone in the military, there's something called CalVet. It could be a faith-based scholarship from a church, mosque, synagogue, something that has to do with religious affiliation, or membership in an organization like the Lions Clubs or the Masons or something like that. A lot of times it'll ask, what is your GPA? It wants to know about your academic record and know the student is successful. It might ask if you've taken them for an SAT score, if you're involved in sports, and sometimes there's specifically athletic scholarships. Sometimes it'll be about your work experience, your hobbies, community service is another big one, your abilities or disabilities. If you're differently abled, there might be special scholarships for that. If you have special skills or talent, leadership, I mean, all kinds of different things. So there are a million different types of scholarships out there. Some of them are going to be specific to a certain college, and I'll give you an example. At the UC system, they have something called the Blue and Gold Tuition Program. And what that basically is a combination of funds that if a family's income, say the student is under 24, if the family's income is less than $80,000 a year, the UCs provide what's called Blue and Gold, which is coverage all the way for the entire cost of the tuition. Now, that's not the entire cost of attendance, but for the tuition part of it, they will pay that up to 4 years for your undergraduate degree. Another example would be what we call the Promise Scholarship. That's something that's affiliated with California community colleges, and that is something that also pays the entire tuition and fees. However, it's for 2 years, your freshman and sophomore year of college at a community college. So sometimes you'll get these awards that are specific, like just to the UCs or the CSUs or a California community college or just a certain private college. So colleges themselves will often offer you scholarships. All right, so this shows for the San Diego Promise, there is one specifically for the community college district, which is City Mesa and Miramar, but they also have the Promise at Southwestern. They also have the Promise at Grossmont and Cuyamaca. They also have the Promise at Miracosta and Palomar colleges, and also Imperial Valley College in the Imperial County. So it's open now. They have a priority deadline coming up in June. And basically the two main things you have to do is you have to fill out that community college application, and then you have to fill out either a FAFSA or a DREAM Act. And that's the first part of the process. So that promise, if you're headed to a community college, or like if you're a 12th grader now and you intend to enroll starting this fall in a community college, you definitely want to make sure you apply to that college, and you definitely want to make sure you fill out a FAFSA or DREAM Act. If you need help with that, CalSOAP provides free help to be able to fill out a FAFSA or DREAM Act. If you have questions, you can contact me or contact us. But even though the priority deadline is over, they still will take it. And so we definitely encourage people to still, if you're a senior and you haven't yet filled out the FAFSA or DREAM Act, please fill it out. All right. There are also athletic scholarships. If you are a student athlete or your child is a student athlete, I'm going to strongly encourage you to go to the NCAA website. That's the National Collegiate Athletic Association. They're the ones who control Division 1, 2, and 3 sports in the USA. And they will start telling you, well, if you are trying to go to be recruited to actually play for the college, not just like for fun, but competitively on that college team, there might be a recruitment process and there's very specific rules that apply. So what you want to go do is go to the NCAA website and start looking up how you register as an NCAA athlete applicant. What are their requirements? Do you need to have a reel? Like, what do you need to have? And when can you start talking to coaches? What colleges offer scholarships or different paths to admission other than the typical path. So NCAA is a great place to go if you are interested in an athletic scholarship. There are also academic awards that might be based on your college, like it could be from the college financial aid office, or it could be from a certain department on a college. Like say, for example, say I'm the English department at UCSD, or say I'm the math department at SDSU, or I'm the biology department at USD. These departments want to recruit talent and they want to recruit students who have applied, the ones that look good to them. So sometimes they'll offer scholarships to students who maybe have a very high GPA in those areas or have really good test scores in those areas and that type of thing. Or maybe they're trying to recruit girls or boys, or it could be any number of things, but that's another place that scholarships might come about. And a lot of times those scholarship applications are just automatically integrated. They're part of the college application. They try to make that part of most college applications nowadays is the scholarship process for that college, which is nice. And then, of course, there are thousands, literally, of private organizations that offer scholarships. It might be something as small as $50. It might be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 or more. So I'll kind of give you some resources for some of these. Corporations and businesses also, sometimes they'll give awards to like the dependents or children of their employees. Sometimes they will give awards to anyone who applies, like if you're Staples, if you're McDonald's, if you're Burger King. Here's a couple others. And again, I will share this slideshow tomorrow on our website, and it has actual links. So there are scholarships from Google, from Dell, Microsoft, Adobe, Raytheon. All of those are examples of tech corporations that offer scholarships. Food and beverage companies is another one. Like I said, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper. Chances are if you recognize a brand name, they probably have a scholarship associated somewhere with them. Automotive companies are another one. Toyota has scholarships, BMW, GM, Shell, Chevron. These are all just examples. And if you are a member of a faith-based organization, it's possible that your specific faith-based organization might offer scholarships just to the students in their congregation. That's usually a smaller pool. So instead of competing with students around the county or around the state or throughout the country, you might only, it might be a small pocket of money, but it might only be for a couple of seniors that are graduating that year. And so that can be a really good source to look at. So if you're in a youth group, if you're in a faith-based organization, ask the leadership, are there scholarships I can apply to? Also, every county has a county office of education, and then your high school itself, and also your school district. Like if you happen to be in San Diego Unified District or Sweetwater or Grossmont, check with your school office as well as your school district and the San Diego County Office of Education. They also have a lot of information and links to scholarships and things like that. Chambers of Commerce are another place where you can often find scholarships. There is a San Diego Chamber of Commerce, which is kind of a business organization affiliated with a city. And there are also sub-chambers of commerce, like there's a Black Chamber of Commerce, a Latinx Chamber of Commerce as well. There are private organizations. For example, the United Negro College Fund has been around for many, many decades. And again, I will give you some resources and some ideas where you can have one place where you can search for all kinds of different scholarships together. In terms of the military, sometimes there are scholarships that are specific to people who have served in the military. There's also a program called ROTC that if you want to go into college, but go through ROTC while you're in college, with the ultimate goal of joining the military, a lot of times they have an ROTC scholarship that will pay for full college tuition, a stipend for books, sometimes other expenses. And you kind of have some military training along with being a full-time student. Also, like I said, if you are the dependent or descendant of someone who was either deceased in the line of duty or permanently disabled, if you go to calvet.org or calvet.gov, you can find out what are the service benefits for the children of veterans. So that's, and then again, and if you are yourself or were yourself in the military, there also is the GI Bill that helps you go get at a public institution like a community college or a CSU or a UC, you can get tuition reduced or sometimes free tuition. Okay, so you want to gather your information in one place. Maybe that's a Google Drive, maybe that's a literal physical folder, but a couple things that you'll probably need is like a one-page resume. Think about, they might be asking for letters of recommendation, but they might be asking directly from the people. Like they might say, we need this person to send it or email it directly to us or submit it to us. Or sometimes they'll just say, if you already have a letter from them, can we just get a copy? So just be aware though, that a letter of recommendation might be something that they might ask. It's usually they're going to ask for someone who's not a family member. So they're not going to ask, can you get a letter of recommendation from your mom or dad? It's usually going to be, can you get it from a coach? Can you get it from a teacher? Can you get it from a counselor? Can you get it from an employer or someone that you have like a network or business connection with? So kind of consider the people that know you and who might be willing to write a letter on your behalf. A lot of times they'll also want a copy of your transcript. They might ask for official, in which case you have to go to the school registrar. But if they ask for an unofficial transcript, that's the kind you can usually access yourself or have your counselor email you an unofficial copy of your transcript that has like your grades and your GPA. Sometimes they'll ask you to answer short questions, or they'll even ask you to respond to brief essays. Be aware that you want to keep these. I usually label them differently. Like there might be one that says like essay, McDonald's scholarship, essay, UC scholarship, or whatever. But you want to make sure to like you don't turn in the Burger King scholarship to Coca-Cola or something like that. But do keep them because a lot of times you can change just little things here and there. And then deadlines. So I worked with the San Diego Foundation, and their deadline was last week for 12th graders. Their scholarship deadline was last week, and they got a lot. They got, I want to say 28,000 different scholarship applications, but they offer hundreds of scholarships. But the two things they said was, where people fell short is that students either didn't fill out the FAFSA or DREAM Act by March 2nd, and that was bad. And the other thing is that they just weren't following basic directions of the scholarship application. So I know it sounds very simple, but like do things and do them by the deadlines. That's like one big piece of advice when it comes to scholarships. Okay. So parents, if you're a parent on this call right now, then these are some things that you can do to help. Help them search for scholarships. If you either follow social media, talk to friends, talk to other, kids and the parents of your kids, and ask them if they got scholarships, where did they find them? Where did they hear about it? What can you do to get one? Strategize with your child. Provide research assistance, help them keep it organized, be a good sounding board, because I know it's a lot. It's like another mini job to apply for scholarships. Review their applications and give them support and encouragement. When I say keep things organized, the way I like to organize a scholarship search is by deadline. So I'll show you, for example, on the CalSOAP website, we have a scholarship tab, and the scholarships we have listed there, we do our best to try to list them by deadline. So we put the ones that are due in January together, and then the ones that are due in February, the ones that are due in March, April, etc. So that depending on what time of the year it is and when you're starting your search, you can kind of start to keep an organized list of, okay, this is the ones that are due this month. This is the ones that are due next month. All right, what are some good sources to look for scholarships? Of course, search online. Literally, if you Google scholarship for 12th graders, scholarship for 11th graders, scholarship for student going into performing arts, scholarship for music production, for girl, for boy, and like for certain ethnicity, you know, whatever it is, for high achievers, for athletes, you can just literally start Googling yourself. Also, social media is a great place to go, and I'll give you some examples of some good places where we post a lot of scholarships on our social media channels. Of course, your school counselors, teachers, community groups you might be involved in. If your school has a career center or a counseling office, or they might put scholarships on like an online website or webpage, or like daily or weekly bulletin at your school. And then also your peers. Ask older sisters and brothers, older peers, or people in the same grade, like, oh, I heard you got a scholarship. How did you find out about it? How did you apply? So start looking. So these are some really good resources. Of course, calsoapsandiego.org is our website. There's a pay for college tab, and under it, there's a scholarship area. And in that scholarship area, that's where we keep our list of any scholarships. I mean, we do have a national database, but we especially include ones that are local to San Diego County. We also have something called the calsoapvirtualclassroom.com, and that is a great place to go because you can make an appointment with a college readiness coach like Francisco, if you would like to, and that person can help you either fill out a scholarship application, a FAFSA, a DREAM Act, and there's a lot of scholarships listed there. Another great national website is fastweb.com. Fastweb is great because you fill out a profile of yourself and you say what grade you're in, what you're interested in, what your GPA is, if you have a certain test score, what your community service is, all the things about you. And then they'll kind of say, oh, well, according to what you entered, these are the scholarships we think you might be eligible for. Okay. Another great one that I really like is the College Board has these things called opportunity scholarships. They've now opened it. You can start as young as sophomore year, like 10th grade year, but for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, if you go to College Board opportunity scholarships, you create a free account, and every time you take a step and complete it, they put your name in a monthly drawing, and every month they have hundreds of $500 scholarships and even a couple of $2,000 scholarships. And then if you do all the steps by your senior year, your name goes into a drawing for $40,000 scholarships. And there's no application for this. There's no GPA requirement. There's no citizenship requirement. You don't have to write an essay. All the tasks are things like search for colleges, search for scholarships, build your list, fill out the FAFSA, apply to college, all the things you're going to be doing anyway. So I definitely encourage you to check out the College Board Opportunity Scholarships. And then, as you would expect, scholarships.com is a good website. Now, SD Foundation, the San Diego Foundation, it's at sdfoundation.org. Now, I will say if you're a senior, unfortunately, the deadline for this year, if you're a high school 12th grader, the deadline passed. It was March 8th of this year. But if you are a junior or younger, keep that in mind. Okay, next spring, probably around February or March, this one's going to be due. All right, so keep San Diego Foundation in mind if you are younger than a 12th grader. Okay, so how do you sell yourself? Right? You have to know your audience who are reading these scholarship applications. And how do you show your skills and your strengths? How do you say, I'm the one who deserves this scholarship? One of the things they're going to look at is kind of what makes you special, what makes you different, how do you distinguish yourself from other candidates? And sometimes everyone has special skills and special gifts, but sometimes it's how you show that, how you demonstrate that in an application that can make the difference in you actually being awarded a scholarship. So these are some themes. You don't have to follow any of them, but a lot of times students find that they kind of maybe fall into one of these categories, and they can say, this is the thing that really shows my passion and who I am the most. And so this is what I'm going to emphasize. Like if they ask me to write an essay or to answer questions, I'm going to focus on this part of myself. So the do-gooder, that would be the person that maybe is involved in something like community service and doing good for others. It could be that you have an amazing creative talent. Maybe you write, Maybe you compose, play an instrument, dance, sing, whatever it is, music production. If you have a creative talent, maybe that's what you want to focus on. You could be a survivor. Maybe you've gone through some incredibly difficult challenges and you have survived and thrived. And so they want to hear about your story. The brainiac. This is the person who is really academically and intellectually stimulated. You are committed to school, committed to classes, and just really committed to learning as a lifelong process. You probably have a strong GPA. The activist. This might be someone who's into like social justice or environment, or there's something that you're passionate about that you're actively trying to make a change in. Also, there's lots of scholarships out there for kind of young entrepreneurs, people who are interested in starting their own businesses. Look into BizTown, there's a lot of things that are for young future business owners. Leaders, right? Whether you're a formal leader on something like your ASB or in a club or even in a classroom, or maybe at work, you're a shift leader or you're a leader at amongst your coworkers. That's something they want to know. Maybe you're an MVP on an athletic team. The scientist, STEM is a very hot topic right now, right? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So if you're interested in a STEM career, a STEM area, that's what you plan to research in college. There are a lot of scholarships that are for STEM students studying STEM. And then the athlete is another one. If you are a student athlete and your athletic talent and athletic commitment is such that that's going to be your main focus, that could be an area you might want to focus something like a scholarship essay on. Francisco, any questions so far?
I'm answering. They're just asking how many pages are reasonable, and I'm just trying to type that it depends on the scholarship application. Sometimes they have a specific page limit or a minimum. So
It depends. It's going to depend on the scholarship.
Yeah,
it's going to depend on the scholarship. They're all different. What are they judging you on? It's going to depend on who's giving the scholarship. Some of them, they're really looking for someone who's a hard worker. Some of them, it's about has the applicant overcome obstacles in their life. Some of them, they're looking at teamwork, right? Can you work as a member of a team? Some of them are looking at your perseverance, your individual initiative. If you have passion or enthusiasm, it might be about your personal sense of responsibility. There are some scholarships that are going to be about something like civic duty or patriotism. If I'm the American Legion, and that's an organization that is devoted to military veterans, then I'm going to look for a student that demonstrates patriotism, right? And fulfilling their civic duty. That's going to be one of the things that's important to me as a judge. It could be what you feel is your purpose or your sense of character. So those are some of the things they might judge you on. A couple of tips and pieces of advice for effective scholarship campaigns. Apply for as many scholarships as possible. You'll never get the ones you don't apply for. Now, you might never get the ones you do apply for, but you're giving yourself a chance, right? If you play the game. So do apply for multiple scholarships. That doesn't mean apply for ones you don't think you're going to qualify for, but apply for as many as you think you might qualify for. Don't neglect local smaller ones. They add up. You can bridge multiple applications, meaning sometimes you can reuse an essay or a resume or something like that with just a couple little tweaks or changes. And so that brings me to recycle, kind of reuse, even though you're like, setting up a different document, giving it a different title, make sure that you're not having to reinvent the wheel every time you do an essay. Keep track. Maybe you like Google Sheets or Excel or something to keep track of what you've applied to, so you can follow up on those. And try to leverage schoolwork and class time. If you have downtime, that's a time to look for scholarships. Learn by example. If there's other people that have gotten scholarships, talk to them, ask them, how did you do it? When did you apply? What kind of things did you say in your essay? And just stick with it, because I know it's a process. It is a process. It takes time. Like I said, it can feel like a part-time job, but if it takes an hour or 2 hours for you to fill out a scholarship application, I know that's a bummer because you're not getting that time back. But if you put in that time and that means you got a $50, $100, $1,000, a $2,000 scholarship, that's free money you don't have to pay back. I mean, if you're getting paid, you can say like, hey, if I worked an hour on this and I got $1,000, it's kind of like getting paid $1,000 an hour. So keep in mind that, yes, I know it's work, but hopefully there is a reward that will come. Okay. I do want to give a couple little words of warning, and that is to beware of, there are some scholarship scams out there. So there are organizations or shady individuals that will try to get something like your personal information, like your social security number or your bank account. Don't ever give out a PIN. Don't give out a bank account number. The only people that, or the only place I would legitimately share that information with would be like something that ends in .gov, like FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov. That would be different than a private organization or a website you don't recognize. If you get called on the phone and they're talking about a scholarship that you never applied to, that's a bit of a red flag. So be cautious. Okay. Now, if they're notifying you by phone because you did apply to that scholarship and now they're letting you know you got the scholarship, that would be different. But if they're talking about a scholarship or an organization you've never heard of, be cautious and don't give out personal information. Most scholarships are free to apply to. The one exception I would say would be the CSS profile, which is a secondary financial aid form that some private colleges or out-of-state colleges might ask you to fill out. But even for that, I think it's like $25. And if your family income is under a certain amount, you get a fee waiver for that anyway. So other than the CSS profile, pretty much scholarship applications should be free. Be careful if they say everybody is eligible for this scholarship or everybody is guaranteed to get something. That's a little bit of a red flag because usually scholarships are competitive. And again, if they have unusual requests for personal information, if they want to know something like a social security number or a bank account or a PIN of any kind, I would definitely recommend please be cautious and don't give that out. All right. And a couple final thoughts. So different institutions, like different colleges, they're going to differ in how they apply outside grant and scholarship funds. But most of them, the scholarship will go to the financial aid office. The financial aid office will apply it to any, if you want to say, outstanding bills that you have there. And then if everything is paid, they then disperse it to the student and you can use that money however you need to live. So talk to the college's financial aid office about how your financial aid could be affected. Sometimes, for example, if you come in with a big private scholarship, they might say, well, awesome, that covers your cost of attendance. So we no longer need to offer you this institutional scholarship as long as they'll keep applying everything up to the cost of attendance, let's put it that way, but not necessarily to exceed the cost of attendance. So it's not like you'll be making money from scholarships, only money that you could apply to your actual living expenses. Sometimes scholarships can help pay for books, computers, technology. And again, talk to the funders, make sure that you are not getting over awarded, but sometimes I know this is a good problem to have, but sometimes if you're getting, quote, too much scholarship money, sometimes they'll defer it. Like they'll say, well, we can hold it for a year and we can pay it to your college next year when you're in more need or something like that. So talk to your financial aid office and talk to the organizations giving scholarships. Deadlines. If they have any additional requirements, sometimes they'll ask for a photo. Sometimes they'll ask for an interview. Sometimes, this is a big one, a lot of them will ask for one simple thing. If you win the scholarship, they would like you to write a thank you letter. And then sometimes they will post these on social media or, you know, what by whatever means they'll include them. But that is a lot of times that's all a scholarship funder wants is a thank you letter, literally. So if there are any additional requirements, like if they say, can you send us your updated test scores? Can you send us your final transcript? Or, you know, can you send us the name and number of your financial aid office, whatever it is, just make sure to follow deadlines and follow up. So these are some social media that I would encourage you to follow if you do social media. If you don't, there's always our website, calsoapsandiego.org. But if you're on Twitter or Facebook, we are at San Diego CalSoap on those two platforms. On Instagram, we're at CalSoap San Diego. And anytime we see an internship opportunity, a scholarship opportunity, a summer program, anything like that that we see, we will try to post and repost on our social media. So it's a really good place to go. And if you're not already following, try following something like your high school counseling office or your high school career center or college counselor. Those are good places to find out about scholarships. So I do encourage you to follow our social media. All right, so this is not actually my information. This is my director, Linda Dowdy, who you can also contact. And again, you can contact me by email, kkwhitaker@ucsd.edu, which is, I've put it there, my name, and let me go ahead and stop share. Sorry, give me one moment. Okay. All right, so I just want to open it up. If there are any questions at this time, Francisco, is there anything in the chat that I need to answer?
No, there's no questions at this time. The last one was about scholarships we're studying about. I was just telling them that there are scholarships that are available specifically for studying about, like the Benjamin or Human Scholarship. I think it's cutting up.
Sorry, I was having a difficult time understanding you, but I think hopefully it's answered in the Q&A. I am going to go ahead and put a link in the chat where for our website, and where tomorrow you'll be able to find this recording as well as the slide deck. So let me stick that in the chat. So calsoapsandiego.org/blog. And again, starting tomorrow, I'll have both a link to this actual webinar recording and the slide deck. And also on calsoapsandiego.org, you can look up the scholarship section, because that's going to have a list of scholarships that you can you find out about, apply to, etc. All right, if there's nothing else, we're a little bit early ending tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. And I thank everybody for joining and for listening and participating. I wish everybody best of luck. Again, I'm at kkwhitaker@ucsd.edu. If you have questions, if you want a recommendation on anything, please don't hesitate to contact me and let me know. And we will go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you, everybody. Good night.